Welcome to BookSwell Intersections. I'm your host, Cody Sisco, and I'm here today with author and educator Désirée Zamorano. Désirée, it's so nice to have you.
Thank you. This is so much fun. It's always fun to chat with you, Cody.
I have been wanting to talk about your book, Dispossessed, for a long time, but this is also a great week for you because I believe you put up a new cover in anticipation of the re-release of the Yamato Women.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm very
so
excited about that too.
all good things happening for you. Let me give the audience just a little bit of a bio for you. Désirée Zamorano is the author of the highly acclaimed literary novel, The Yamato Women, an award-winning and Pushcart Prize nominee. Her work is often an exploration of issues of invisibility, injustice, or inequity. Her writing appears in Alta, Catapult, and the Kenyon Review. Her novel, Dispossessed, is out from Rise. And for full transparency, I did have the wonderful opportunity to work with Desiree editing Dispossessed, and so it's been on my mind to catch up with you and talk about this book now that it's out and get into some of it if you're
Thank you,
willing.
Cody. And of course, thank you so much for all of your work on the novel, helping me make it so much better. Always appreciate it.
I remember one of our first conversations when we were trying to figure out like, is this a good fit? Can we work together? And I'm really interested in, and I remember very clearly when you were talking about why you chose Manuel as the focus of the novel and how you wanted to write a novel about a good man's life. Um, and so I was wondering if you could, take us a little deeper into, your inspiration for his character, for the setting of the novel, which deals with a lot of injustice toward Mexican American families and Manuel's family in particular.
So, is it okay if I back up a little bit and talk about how the novel came to be? Is that all right? Can I talk about
Yeah,
that
yeah.
too? Okay, so just so people know, thank you for mentioning the Amada Women. The Amada Women came out in 2014, and that was the same year that I started teaching at Cal State Long Beach. And I taught Cal State Long Beach something that I've been teaching for a long time. I come from a public school background. I was a teacher educator, and at Cal State Long Beach, I began teaching linguistic and cultural diversity for future elementary classroom teachers. That's a big fancy word that can be distilled down to DEI, which is somehow a bad phrase, but I don't know why, because I am all about diversity and equity to the curriculum and, inclusiveness. These are all heartwarming things. In any case, this is the class I would teach. And during this class I teach, my students knew about Jim Crow laws, but they didn't know about the Green Book, how people navigated Jim Crow laws. They didn't know about sundown towns, even in California. My students knew a little bit about Japanese internment, but some of them had honestly never heard of it. They'd never
Mm.
heard of Manzanar. So we covered all kinds of different things. Oh my gosh, we covered the basically genocide of the indigenous peoples in California. So these are the happy things I talk about in this class. No, I mean, I think we have to face our history to be a better country always. But it would slay me semester after semester, that I would teach them about the mass expulsion of Mexican Americans and Mexican nationals. And nobody had ever heard of this. And it just really upset me, this. And, people would ask, well, did you know anybody? It's like, no, I don't know anybody, but I'm Mexican American and this is part of my heritage. I live in California. This is part of Californians' heritage. We
Mhm.
need to know this. So I started teaching this in 2014, in 2015, in 2016. And in 2017, I'm going, where is the novelist who's going to take on this topic? Where's oh, it suddenly hit me. That novelist was me. So I started thinking about this. What does this mean, to get to your answer about Manuel? And I really did. I had written the Amada Women. So I've written about 4 women because I'm always so dispirited by the narrow representations of Latinas in the media. So that's what I wrote that novel, to kind of disperse and broaden our representation. And then I thought, okay, I wrote about women. I would like to write about a man. I'd like to write about a good man. Because I do think there are so many over-representations of toxic masculinity, right? We get this
Mm,
idea of what a man is. Yes, that's what a man is. Raw, a real man. Raw. I mean, really, we have a president who's supposedly a real man, right? So all of these ugly representations about men, and just like with the Amada women, I wanted to portray women who weren't portrayed, who I knew. I wanted to portray a man who I knew, but wasn't very much centered in the media. Also, I was thinking about this book. How do we get a reader to deal with hard subjects, to connect with hard subjects? And for me, we start with a child
hmm
because all of us can feel and resonate with that child's, what's going on here, with that child's curiosity. So I tackled Manuel as a boy and I watched him unfold and grow into manhood. And as your listeners might know, I should tell you what happens with Manuel is that he's in the 1930s a small boy and he's separated from his family. He doesn't know why he's separated from his family, but this is the impact of what these mass deportations, expatriations did.
hmm
And the through line of the novel is Manuel trying to reconnect and trying to find out what the heck happened. So is that a fair overview, Cody?
Yeah,
Why I
yeah,
chose
and
that?
it takes, he doesn't know what's happened, and it takes him a long time, first of all, to reckon with the truth, because the history is, even as it's happening back then, the history is being erased and no one's really talking about it. And so he, discovers the truth later, and that means that he lives a big portion of his life dealing with this hole in his heart, that that is unexplained to him. But there's I guess the silver lining in that the people around him, especially the women who are caregivers or love interests, bring some of that back to his heart. And so maybe talk a little bit about Tia Amparo and his wife and daughter, and how you saw those female characters in the book.
So, as I said, I wanted to create a good man. I don't really, research shows when boys go to all boys schools, they're not very nice people.
Mm,
Boys really need to be socialized by girls. And so I knew as I writing the book, Manuel would have to be surrounded by women. And his very first tender relationship is with his sister,
right.
who's so impactful in his life that he pines for her throughout the separation, throughout his lifetime. And then Amparo, who comes in and cares for him. To me, Amparo was just this idealized but also real woman who had her own issues but had space in her heart to take in a small boy. So I feel as a reader we love Amparo as well because of the care and tenderness for which she takes care of this small boy. And has her own issues and is dealing with life and is very religious.
hmm
But this is who she is. And I guess, I drew from when one of the readers said, "How come?" It was a very interesting choice. They're not Catholic; they're Protestants.
Mm,
And I have to confess, I grew up as a Protestant, and I drew from my background there. I really didn't feel comfortable. I feel comfortable writing a man. I did not feel comfortable writing from the perspective of a Catholic man. It's like, okay, he's gonna be a Protestant, and I really connected with Amparo on that really parts of her were like my grandmother, and parts of her were like
mm,
other generous women. And also, as I wrote the book, of course he's going to fall in love. And who's that person going to be? And gosh, it just escapes you right now. But I was reading. Oh, yes, that's what I was doing. So I want to talk about a little bit of the research for some of you who might be skeptical. It's like, okay, she just made this stuff up. Well, one of the first books that I read about this is called Decades of Betrayal by Francisco Balderrama. And if you are a
mm,
scholar and you want to know the reality, this talks about LA, what happened in LA. This talks about how Mexico colluded. This talks about how they actually wanted to build a train from LA to Mexico City to get rid of all these Mexicans, which was interrupted by World War II. Okay, that's not in my book. because you do all this research to not put in your book just to have the foundation. But I was reading another book, which is fantastic, by Vicky Ruiz, and she was a scholar at Occidental College while I was writing this book. And she wrote a book about Out from the Shadow, and it was all about Latinas in Southern California during the 30s and 40s. And one of them was a Guatemalan, not social worker, organizer, and she organized the canners and the seamstresses in LA. It's like, wow, that is some dynamic lady who I'd never heard about. Luisa, I forget her last name, apologies. So I, in some way, modeled Lisette. I wanted Lisette to have spirit and energy and ambition. And, I caught a little glimpse of that in that book.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? And I don't know, you'll have to read the book to find out about Dahlia, I think. Don't want to go too.
Would you, thinking about that time period and the research that you've done and how it seems to inspire you, would you consider like revisiting that time period for another novel? Is that something that you've thought about?
I felt I was so daring to do anything historical. It's like, oh my gosh, am I really reimagining this time period? And are people gonna nail me for doing anachronisms, which I think we didn't do, Cody? I don't think there's anything in there. But I was really scared and nervous. But I think my friend Naomi Harahara, somebody who was doing historical fiction, says, read books set in the same time. And
Right.
when you do, you will see, oh, they don't detail the brand of the phone or the brand of the jeans. They just have their own kind of language and their own kind of description. It's like, okay, I got this. Whether I would do it again, I don't know. Right now, it's like I don't even know if I want to write another novel right now. But it's like
I hear you. There's ups and downs, right, to our creative lives.
That's a really optimistic question. I will think about it. I will think.
Oh,
about it.
good. I love planting a seed. Thinking also about you mentioned Amparo and like some of the issues that she's dealing with. One of them is the expulsion of residents from Chavez Ravine, and that, I mean, that's another of those incidents that feels like it gets lost. Like right now you look over there and oh, it's the Dodger Stadium. That's where everyone goes to watch the Dodgers. But like before that, it was many or several neighborhoods that were, rugged and almost like wild neighborhoods in the middle of LA because they were so just like lush and like beautiful. I mean, in the way that you portrayed them, it was their communities that we've now lost. And I just think you did that. You did that so well to capture that time and place.
Thank you. I will again credit the research for that. There was a book called Chavez Ravine, 1940. It was a collection of photographs, and it really brought to life for me what this community looked like. I also snagged a few nicknames from that book because it detailed all of the nicknames in the neighborhood. I thought that was so cool. I based the little corner store on the one that was in the book. So yeah, that was really useful for me. And there are some names that are factual, like the last family standing who gets dragged out of Chavez Ravine. So I do think it's covered a little bit, but I did want to I wanted to make it visceral. What did it feel like to be a member of this community and then the community be gone? Now, Cody, as you said, full disclosure, listeners, I have to give you a full disclosure. I lived up until January 7th in Altadena, and I do not live in Altadena right now. And my house is actually standing, but mine is one of 8 houses standing on the street. How do you live in a neighborhood that is gone? I mean, our neighborhood is gone, and I really don't know what our next steps are. And our people say, don't make a decision for a year. It's okay, I won't. So this is not my house. This is not my backdrop. This is temporary lodging. So just letting you know where I am.
Yeah.
It gave me a very much a different insight into this character that I had written about.
Interesting. Even later after you.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Are there other locations from the book where you dug into the research and decided, oh, I have to have that appear? I'm thinking, there like the memorable places for me included the port, included
Oh,
the Highland Park home,
okay.
Mount
For,
Washington.
thank you for reminding me about the port. So again, my friend Naomi Harahara had written a nonfiction book on Terminal Island, and it just seemed very
Hmm.
clear for me a young man would find jobs at the docks. And so I remember reading this book and looking at the pictures and using a line out of that book. For example, the book that she wrote, it mentions the red cars now once they were removed were rusting in the distance on Terminal Island. I thought, wow, I love that image, and so I have Manuel glimpsing it, like just a little line. And I also loved using Olvera Street because I'd gone there as a kid, and it was something that never changed, and it was kind of like a touchstone for many of us, and I loved doing that. I want to mention another book, excuse me, that I used in my research, and it was called Anything But Mexican. And basically, that's about the total erasure of Spanish influence, Mexican influence. And again, what did I use out of that book? One line, and when the character says anything but Mexican. So somehow, gosh, I think that's relevant today. Shoot.
Yeah, yeah.
And and honestly, this book is so relevant to today. I mean,
Yes,
so
even
few.
more so than the last few years, the year it was published, it's come back around even more. So let's talk about like how the current political moment kind of mirrors this previous moment where, on the table by the federal government is expulsion, right? And that also creates counter movements. And one thing we're seeing, is LA rising up and pushing back in a way that it did before. Well, maybe not in the 30s, but certainly later on.
So President Herbert Hoover endured the Great Depression. And his cabinet members said, hey, we can get out of this depression, just deport the Mexicans. Literally what they said. Verbally, that's what they said. And the President of the United States gave great latitude to states and cities in how they addressed it. And, LA just jumped right in and basically told people, look, we had more social network there. We had like food being given away. They'd say, hey, we're going to stop delivering your food. You're not going to get your packages. And people did self-deport. And yet they wanted to get rid of more people. And so the very first raid was in Olvera Street. And
Oh,
the
wow.
very first raid actually caught up Japanese and Chinese as well. But the message was clear. Just like our president sends in the expletive deleted National Guard as if our city is under siege. It's
Yeah.
a huge message. So at that time in the 30s, we did not have the social media that we have today. And
Right.
I would say now we know what's going on. Then people hid, people shrunk. And in similar ways to Japanese internment, people were ashamed. It somehow was
Mm-hmm.
the victim's fault for being not white, for being accused, for not being the right kind of immigrant. And so people hid and went underground. And really, our community, like the Japanese community, didn't talk about it because it was shame filled. So Herbert Hoover deports these people. He still loses the re-election. In fact, I'm going to jump a little. It's not in my book, but
Mm-hmm.
Eisenhower had a program, and this is, you can Wikipedia it. The official name was Operation Wetback.
Yeah.
So this is just such a recurring history of who we are. And I mean, things that aren't in my book. My God, they used to spray people crossing the border coming north with insecticide because that's how dirty they considered Mexicans. It goes on and
Yeah.
on. And I just try
Yeah.
to maintain sanity. And I was talking with the writer, Dagoberto Gilb, about 20 years ago. And, we were just chatting. And he goes, I don't know if this attitude is going to change in my lifetime. And he was just maybe 10 years or so older than me. I'm like, I'm not that negative. 20 years later, it's like, I don't know if it's going to change in my lifetime. I have no idea.
Well, let's talk about, because part of as Manuel gets older, part of his life is reckoning with that shame and being drawn out of it by his wife and daughter. When the Chicano student movement starts to surge up, and then protests against, I think, Prop 187. That was a moment of flipping the script on that shame narrative and saying, actually, no, we have pride in who we are, and we're not going to be pushed around. Um, and he's, a little reluctant, right? Because he's in that other mindset.
In the book, he says, "Don't fly the Mexican flag, okay?" And it's so real today that during these demonstrations, and a man who really is my mentor in higher ed is now living in Japan. He goes, "Tell them to stop flying those Mexican flags." And I said, "Dear mentor, you come and protest and fly the flag you want."
Yeah.
And it's just like amazing how that flag triggers people. The Irish flag doesn't trigger people, the Italian flag, the Swedish flag. We are so othered.
Right. And
And I'm sorry, did I answer your question? I don't remember. Oh, that shame of dealing. And I also use Manuel as like a regular person.
right.
Many of us are not politically engaged because we're so busy surviving. People my age are upset that younger people aren't involved. It's like their life has been a shit show. Start with 2001. What do you want them to do? They think this is standard.
Right. Can we go back? Can we just? There's a few
And
things I would
so,
change.
oh gosh, I was going to tell you a story. I just have to tell you a story. So July 3rd, I'm at an event. I'm not in Altadena. I'm in a different community. And I'm talking with this woman and I'm telling her what I do. And she looks at me, "Oh, that's very nice. You weren't raised in the United States, were you?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is about our political climate. This is about me not looking like what you think I'm supposed to look like." I don't know what our next steps are, honestly, except showing up, representing, and being here.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't buy it. I don't buy this attempt to like make an enemy within, to make me scared of Mexicans. Like, what the hell? No. It's I know that it is a tactic, right? It is a strategy that the government is trying to create. But I don't know. As a Californian, I'm like, I don't buy it. It just, it's
Well,
it's it seems to me like the more foreign activity, right?
I
Even though I
don't
know
know.
fascism is homegrown too. But
Yeah, I don't know. We just scratched the surface. Remember, Proposition 187 was in California and it did pass.
yeah,
And that would have made illegal to educate kids of undocumented. And I think that is Stephen Miller's wet dream.
right.
He wants to remove all of us. I fear for my housekeeper who got naturalized about 2 years ago. I fear that they will claw back citizenship from people who are not the right
Mm.
shade. Okay, are we getting too political? I don't know. It's just hard not to be in this. And my book is written for a political lens, so people will know this has
Yes,
happened before.
yes. So this book right here is the one you want to read for a historical perspective that informs what's happening today,
Yeah,
and maybe helps us see it more clearly for what it is.
yeah. Today, the past echoes in the present all the time, and we have to be cognizant of what's going on. We have to be cognizant this has happened before.
Yeah.
Another story. I'm going to change it a little bit, but um, during 9/11, when the towers came down, the Bush administration literally wanted to round up all Arabs. And Mineta, who was a Secretary of Transportation, who knew about the internment, if not actually experienced it, absolutely put an end to that.
Hmm.
We, as a society, need to know our history so we can be cognizant of when it happens again. I'm
Yeah.
sad. I had some big dreams for this book. Yeah, people will not let this happen again. Well, it's happening. It's like it is happening, and we
Yeah.
have to
And
figure out what to do.
it's time to stand up for our values and not let our values be eroded by power grab. I mean, it is a power grab.
And that's
Uh,
what I say, Cody. Stand on your values. I mean,
yeah.
And you talked about fear. I really feel there's a political party that sticks a little needle in our amygdala, gets us all filled with fear. And I want to go back to the fires. I have to tell you, I went up to my neighborhood. It took 3 weeks to go up to our neighborhood, and all we could see was the videos of stuff. And I said, okay, I won't get emotional. I'll wait till I see our house. We go to
Mm,
our house. It was standing. It was pristine. A little bit ash here, a little bit ash there. But the devastation getting to my house was terrible, and the devastation was awful. And I didn't get emotional on the house. And we drove down Lake, and the moment I got emotional was when there was a woman holding up a banner saying, World Central Kitchen, free food. And I thought, wow, there are people out here taking care of us. And it really affirmed to me 99% of us are good. I
mhm.
really believe it, whatever political power. It's just that little fear that makes us look at each other with terror and suspicion. We are human beings. We need to care for one another. And
Yeah,
that's why I wrote this book, because, and when I started writing in 2018, the administration, which is now the current administration, was separating families at the border. It's like,
right.
nobody can accept this. Nobody can accept this.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't let that cruelty continue and be normalized, and so we speak out. Is there anything I wanted to ask you this? Is there anything that you haven't yet been asked about your book that you want to share?
Ooh, ah.
Free, it's a freebie.
Let me think about that. In my heart, I hope people see it as true historical and feel that timeline, viscerally feel that time period. I think that's what I feel the most insecure about. It's kind of like being a magic act. I hope the magic worked.
Yeah. And what's next? What can we look forward to reading?
Well, I'm very excited about the re-release of The Amado Women. I'm kind of like saying our portrayals haven't really expanded that much. When it
Hmm,
was written, we got humble, hardworking maid, or we got Sofia Vergara, and nothing in between. And now actually it has changed. Now we get Sofia Vergara as a narcotraficante. So we've
there you
expanded.
go.
Uh, so I am excited about that coming out again. And next year I have a collection of short stories coming out. I
Wonderful.
look, I
Oh,
look really good on paper.
I am excited for that, and you will have to come back on and we'll have to talk about those stories.
Thanks, thanks,
When I get
thanks.
to read them, I hope I get to read them
Sure,
soon.
sure, sure. I'll send you a free copy.
Yay. All right, Desiree, thank you so much. It's been great catching up, and I'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Cody.
Thank you.